Good day, folks. Good day. Win-Trapreneur Wednesday. It's always a great day. All right, let me just get this thing shared out real quick on Facebook, and then we'll get into today's discussion. You already know what we're about here. I don't know why it's taking so long on Facebook. What's the problem? Looks like yes. Oh, it says all right. Go live. Looks like the stream was deleted on Facebook. Try creating a new stream or just removing the destination. Remove. And then hold on 1 second here. For some reason it has to be recreated on Facebook. Podcast listeners, just give me a second. We're going to try to get this thing. That's never actually happened, but this is why it's so important to make sure you are constantly recording, constantly going at it. All right, it should be good now. Let me give it there we go. All right, it's live. It's here. Facebook, what's happening? All right, good. There we go. Facebook, we're good. Let me see if I can get a shout out real quick. Constantly going at it. All right, it should be good now. Share. All right, good. There we go. Facebook, we're good. Let me see if I can get a share. All right, we're good to go. We're good to go. Let's get right into it. Let me just check YouTube real quick. And we about to get this party started. While you're at it, while you're waiting, if you're listening to this on YouTube, be sure to like, comment, share, subscribe, all that good stuff. We do this every single. Comment, share, subscribe, all that good stuff. All right, here we go. Right? Yes, sir. You see what the thumbnail is? You see exactly what the thumbnail is. Let me just tell you, it is one of the most rewarding. Also, all week, we've been dissecting and talking about this whole concept of worldview and giving you guys an understanding that worldview is not something that just happens. It's how you were created. It's the things that were placed in your mind. It's the things that you were around as a young person. So today for Win-Trapreneur Wednesday, I'm going to talk to you guys today all about how my worldview developed and the kind of household I was raised in and why I've become the person I've become and why I've had the values that I've become and why I think the way I think. And all of these things tie into how a person is raised. And the thing about it as business owners, as the folks who run business, the folks who primarily that I look to serve every day, the folks who run these businesses are the folks who are responsible for hiring the right people, bringing the right people in place, all that kind of stuff. It's important for you to understand the culture and the tone that you set and the things that you place as value. Eventually, it's going to be created in terms of who you bring in. It's going to have an effect. It's going to have a strong effect in terms of the results you're looking to get, who your main hitters are, who your main people are, and who you need to be bringing in and how you need to be bringing them in and all that kind of stuff. So we're going to dive into everything like that today. We're going to really put a bow or put a wrap up on the whole worldview conversation tomorrow. We'll recap it a little bit about everything we went through from Monday, yesterday, and today. And then tomorrow we'll recap the whole concept of worldview. And then Friday, Faith-Based Friday, got a long Memorial Day weekend. And next week, I'll tell you now, next week, we're going to dive into this whole black fatigue conversation. I personally needed to give myself a couple of days to really tune in and dive into some research and talk to you about what the whole black fatigue thing is all about, because it is actually something that is affecting businesses now. It's affecting the way you think. It's affecting the way the people's mindset. It's affecting a lot. It's affecting a lot of things. So we'll dive into all that. Before I get too into the topic, let me just make sure I introduce myself to anybody that's new to this world, new to this channel, new to me. First and foremost, my name, it is Aswan Cruikshank. I'm your one and only Move Swiftly speaker, former Division I college football player, and current 5-time, soon to be 6-time published author and educator. What I do, I create a whole brand, I create a whole business about taking the innovative teamwork lessons that you learn on the football field and aligning them with businesses and aligning them to business owners. So they have a group of employees, they have a staff that moves as efficiently as a as a high school or a youth championship football team. The reason I make sure I make that point for you as a business owner that's listening in right now is you want your business more so like a youth or a high school championship team. When it gets to college and when it gets to the pros, there's a lot of politics that go into that. There's a lot of money involved with that. There's a lot of just who knows this person, who has this person. There's a lot of just unethical agendas being pushed at the collegiate and the pro level, which is something that if you keep up with sports, you can probably see the difference and understand what I'm talking about. When you're talking about building your business, you want your business more so catered to those high school and youth athletes, the way their mindset is, the way they're showing up to work, the way they're working together, and there's no money. No one's paying them to do this. They just do it because they love it. That's the mentality. That's the kind of mentality that you want in your businesses every day. So that's why I always make that distinction. There's a lot of speakers out there. There's a lot of people that claim to, I'm going to be a former athlete, or whether it's someone that's been in the corporate environment that can teach employee development, but very few of them are really, really targeting. Well, I call myself, I'm the only one. I'm the one and only person that's going to be able to teach you specifically how to make it so the business is moving like that championship high school or youth team. That's the distinction. All right. That's a big distinction, because that is where you really want people showing up every day with that passion, that eagerness, that hunger to them. All right. That's what it's all about. And let me get through a couple announcements here before I get going today, because you as regular consumers, you already know I can turn up. I get really excited really quick. So let me get through the first announcement. First and foremost, business owners, again, as you can tell, I'm incredibly passionate about helping you guys, incredibly passionate about working with you guys. I'm incredibly passionate about serving the business owners who really do want to build a staff that's cohesive, want to build a staff that has a really, really strong mindset and are really eager to show up to work every single day. So first things first, I need you to go to freeguide.makeyourmove.com. That's freeguide.makeyourmove.com. It'll take you maybe 15 seconds to put your phone number, your name, your email address in, and you will be sent a free gift on how to make it so you can be doing certain things now to create a cohesive unit. Basically, in a nutshell, it's basically a formula, a math formula that I put it into. All right. Very easy to understand. All right. Number one, you have to establish measurables. And then on top of that, you have to create a professional distance. Those are the two things that you need to make sure you're doing every day. And from that equation, you're going to start to create a productive environment. Those are the two things that you're going to need to have. I'll give that one to you for free. I have a whole lot more suggestions for you, but I'll give this one to you for free. Establishing measurables and creating a professional distance. That is the equation. There's no other equation that's going to work if you want to have a productive environment. I've been around a lot of business owners that have failed and have lost their business because they've missed these two things. They've gotten so comfortable and they haven't required the people that are in their business to make it so there's measurables and there's a professional distance. Those two lines got blurred, and ultimately the businesses went out of business because they didn't understand the importance of those two things: measurables and a professional distance. That's important. All right. Finally, after you do that, so after you go to freeguide.makeyourmove.com, just simply go over to makeyourmove.com, which is the main website which you can shop. You can, go and have me come. You can book me to come speak. You can get in contact with me. We could book a meeting. We could talk about where you're at, what you're all about, what you want your business to be, what you want your team to look like, and all that stuff. All that is available. If you just want to do, which again, I'm telling you this because it's important for you to do. It's important that you go and make sure you do your research on whoever you bring in to do employee development workshops and things like that. So all of that, all the research, everything you need to know about me is right there on makeyourmove.com. That's makeyourmove.com. All right. So as far as what we're going to talk about today, Win-Trapreneur Wednesday, we are going to discuss how my worldview was shaped. All right. How my worldview was shaped, because from Monday and yesterday, I've been really dissecting and giving you an understanding about the importance of worldview. All right. And the processing that it takes, and the way you have to understand, hey, every single person does not have your worldview, and that's totally fine. You're not going to agree with every single person. In fact, what sparked this entire theme is the fact that I've worked with, there's two individuals that I have gotten so fed up with at this point, because I've known them for the past 3 years. I've worked with them the same school for the past 3 years. There's two individuals in particular that I've grown to just flat out say, look, I don't like these two individuals. They're not going to change. It doesn't matter how things are. It doesn't matter what's going on. I just don't like our worldviews just don't align. That's totally fine. You know, the place I teach at, the kids would never know it. They would never know it. I'm never going to do anything to jeopardize it. I'll never do anything to ruin a kid's experience at school, especially me having the name like Aswan Crookshank. Listen, I mean, school outside of football, school was it was a terrifying experience. It was an experience that I would never wish on a kid ever. All right. Ever. Outside of me finding the acceptance on the football field, just school in general was a very, really challenging time in my life. This is what led me to being in the position and doing the work I do. So I would never put a kid through a situation where myself and another adult disagree on worldviews. I will never put them in a situation where their experience in school is actually ruined or anything like that. But I still need to process it. I still, as a human being, I'm still human. I still need to process the fact that there are some people that I don't agree with. I don't like. I don't particularly think what they do is healthy or anything like that. And I put into ChatGPT, I said, all right, look, ChatGPT, help me, be my therapist for a little bit. Walk me through what I need to be doing to accept the fact that some people's worldview just don't align with mine. They conflict with mine. And at the end of the day, we as adults, we got to figure out how to create a professional distance, and we got to work together. So that's what sparked off this entire week theme of worldview. And, yesterday we talked about, the importance of speaking, empathizing, breathing, figuring out a way to move on in a professional manner, and again, just being adults about certain situations. All right. Now today I would get even more personal, because this is what I do. I'm going to hold myself accountable no matter what. I'm going to put my ass on the line, put my ass out there. And it's almost like one of my favorite scenes in Jerry Maguire. It was at the beginning of the movie. If you don't know, Jerry Maguire is a movie about a sports agent, Tom Cruise. Yeah, Tom Cruise. At the beginning of the movie, he basically, they're talking about a sports agent. He's basically, it's kind of a biopic of Drew Rosenhaus. They couldn't say Drew Rosenhaus, but basically they made the movie off the super agent Drew Rosenhaus. And so Jerry Maguire, being played by Tom Cruise, at the beginning of the movie, he starts talking. He wrote this mission statement about how they want to be more one-on-one with the players, and they didn't want to be just the agents that's just taking money from pro athletes and stuff like that. So he wrote this mission statement, and he was just at a place where he was, just in a bad place mentally. And he goes and he writes this mission statement, and he hands it to the copy machine guy. And you see one of my favorite scenes, and I love that. I could tell you that movie by heart, but one of the beginning scenes of the movie, the guy, Tom Cruise gives the guy, or Jerry Maguire gives the guy the mission statement. He has it printed out, and then the guy from the copy machine shop goes, "That's how you become great, man. Hang your balls out there." And that's me. That's me. If I'm going to put my name behind Win-Trapreneur Wednesday and showing up every single day, doing the work I do, making sure I'm giving you the content that you need to make sure your business does not suffer from turnover and not suffer from constant replacing of employees and all that. If I'm doing my part, if I'm asking you to trust me, I got to make sure I'm putting my balls out there, putting my ass out there, and being as authentic and having it available for who is ever really serious about building out a solid team. So today I'm going to discuss the 4 people. Now, there's a lot of people that help shape my worldview. There's a lot of folks that I've met just from, playing ball and, the different schools I went to, from teammates, and a lot of people that I could talk to outside of my family that really helped me think the way I think. But we're going to discuss 4 people today, 4 people. And I'm looking at the time, I'm seeing I only have 30 minutes. But these 4 people, I can go an hour each on all of them. Okay. Between my cousin KeyRann, shout out to Rand 100 grand. My sister Fushena, I call her Sisty, my mother Debra Cruikshank, and my father Neil Cruikshank. All 4 of them, if I wanted to, I can go an hour on each and just start talking about story after story after story after story. I'm not going to do that. I'm going to condense it so you guys just get a Cliff Notes version of how those 4 individuals really help shape my worldview. If I had to really break it down into 4 individuals, family members wise, I mean, aside from, maybe the coaches that I had outside of the family, but in terms of family, the difference between family and friends or acquaintances is family going to be around for life. Family will not. I don't care how much you guys may disagree politically. You may disagree with significant. You may disagree with what gets worn, the teams you like, whatever. You may disagree with a lot of shit when it comes to family, but family going to have your back for life, no matter what. So when it comes to how my worldview was shaped, these 4 individuals, they will have as one Cruikshank's back for life. No ifs, ands, or buts about it. Doesn't matter where we are. These 4, all right, doesn't matter what goes on. These 4 will never, ever, 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 ever. And I'm saying this, I'm emphasizing this point because when you're talking about raising kids, when you're talking about being a person of substance, when you're talking about having a break in general, in fact, let me show you. I have it right. I got this new keychain podcast, and I'm showing this new keychain. It says breaking generational chain breaker. I got this at this meeting that I went to this past weekend. All right, listen. When it comes to family, they're gonna have your back for life. And here's what happened. I'll be 100% honest. What happened? This past Mother's Day, my mother and father sent this image. They sent this image. Now, they're still in Maryland. I live in Florida now. But my mother and father sent this image in the group chat. So we all have a group chat going on. And my mother and father sent this image this past Mother's Day. And let me tell you, I'm telling you from my heart, I saw my father. Again, my father, he's born in 53. I'll let you go do the math when it comes to his age. I'm not going to put his age out there like that. But when I see my father wearing a clothing brand that my cousin came up with, my cousin created, the Jumper Status brand that you're looking at, an urban wear brand. In fact, I'll just put it on the screen for you guys to look at real quick. There it is. Status. It's the first thing you'd see when you go on when you just look up Jumper Status, his apparel, his brand, his company. When you see that, right, this sweater, I'm telling you, this is what I'm telling you. I'm telling you, if you're listening to this on the Move Swiftly podcast, just know I'm on jumperstatus.com. This is my cousin came up with this clothing line, this clothing brand. You see this sweater, all right? You see this sweater, and you see what my father's wearing. It's the same sweater, man. It's the same sweater. This sweater, that sweater, it's the same sweater. Okay. When you see that happening, there was something in me that saw that and it's like, oh my gosh, the story is too good to tell. The story is too good to tell. Like KeyRann, that's the name of my cousin's the one who came up with the clothing brand. He was he was the only family member that I remember growing up that actually played football outside of me. So, when it comes to playing football and sticking to the game, most of the time you're looking for a family member who may know it, who may be in part of it, or may know it in some way, shape, form, or fashion. And he was the only cousin that I had that actually played the game of football. Again, much love for my older sister, but she never actually played. So obviously I cling to him, and I kind of took to him, and we ended up getting really, really close as I was growing up. And all the trips, again, I grew up in Maryland, but it was nothing but a little 4-hour drive to get to Brooklyn, and seeing that's where my mother grew up and all that. It was a great connection. So when I see this on this stage of life and see my father wearing wearing his clothes. It's like, oh, the support. This is what I mean when I say the support, the foundation, the goal. We're always going to have each other's back. Family going to have each other's back no matter what. All right. So I saw that and I'm like, yo, and every time I get some solid, some quality content, some quality things for me to discuss, I'm going to break it down. You already know I'm going to break it down. You already know I'm going to talk about it. So let's get into this article because, again, like I said, it's very possible that I get long-winded. And if I wanted to, I can talk for an hour each of these people. But I'm going to give you the Cliff Notes version. I'm going to give you the Cliff Notes version. So podcast listeners, I am reading directly from the article that's on medium.com. Again, make sure you follow me as well on medium.com/moveswiftly44. Also, make sure you're liking, commenting, subscribing to this channel, sharing, hitting that notification, man. We at this thing every single day, and we're so close to football season. Woo! This summer is going to be something. It's going to be something. So make sure you tap into all of that. All right, so here we go. Win-Trapreneur Wednesday, how my worldview was shaped. All right. Welcome back to Win-Trapreneur Wednesday, where we dive into what it really means to win in both your purpose and your paycheck. As we've been discussing all week, your worldview, the way you see the world, how you interpret people, power, pain, and progress is taught first at home. It doesn't come from a textbook. It doesn't come from politics. It comes from the voices around you before the world ever knew your name. So today, two things. Number one, I'll explain what a Win-Trapreneur is, especially if you're new around here. And number two, then I'll give you the Cliff Notes version of how my worldview was shaped by the people closest to me. First, what is a Win-Trapreneur? Glad you asked, folks. All right. A term that I proudly coined. And yes, a book is on the way very soon. A Win-Trapreneur is someone who has entrepreneurial vision for their life, but has also been fortunate enough to find a job that pays them every 2 weeks. And that job aligns with that bigger vision. It's not entrepreneurship. It's not side hustling. It's alignment. Okay. It's duality. It's winning in both forms and not apologizing for it. Now, here's how my worldview was shaped. All right. So let me get a sip of water before we start this. Number one, KeyRann cuts. ran 100 grand. The cousin who made style and vision cool. Founder and CEO of Jumper Status, an urban clothing brand. I'll never forget the day my mom casually told me, you know, he played football too, right? I'll never forget that day. I was young. I just started playing ball. And because this is her nephew now. See, that's the thing about life and when you grow. Now that I have a nephew who's playing ball, I'm thinking about the way my mother must have felt when she saw her nephew out there playing ball, and now she got a son that they can connect with, and just being able to create those fellowship opportunities, to create those opportunities in which, hey, we can continue to grow as family, we can continue to have times to meet up and all that. Those things were taken for granted from me when I was a kid, but now that I'm on this stage of life, it's like, okay, those things can't be taken for granted because they're beautiful, beautiful moments, and they're small, and you really don't know how big of a deal it actually is, right? So I'm going back to the article, podcast listeners. I'll never forget the day my mom casually told me, you know, he played football too, right? At that moment, he became my favorite cousin instantly. He grew up in Brooklyn, where my mom lived before raising my sister and me in Maryland. Every time we visited Brooklyn now, she'd tell him, and she would be talking to my, so she basically, the way it would work is we would drive from Maryland to Brooklyn, and my mother would drop me off with my cousin. And the first thing she'd tell him is like, look, boy, make sure he goes and gets a haircut. That would be the thing. Small things, man. Because she knew that was just the style and making sure it was looking presentable and all that kind of stuff. She goes, look, make sure you take Ozzy to get a haircut. From there, you know, so that's what he would do. He would make sure that I go get a haircut. We found a little spot right there on Franklin Avenue where he would go to see his grandmother, and we'd always, you know, go get lined up and all that. And then after I got the haircut, it was either, you know, some football practice. I remember it was Thanksgiving one year, not Thanksgiving. I think it was the year the Broncos won the Super Bowl that day, that Sunday, where the Broncos won their second Super Bowl in a row. It was their second Super Bowl in a row because they played the Falcons. Yeah, they played the Falcons. I remember that morning, me and him, we went to like some sort of football thing that we went to. So after that, it was out. So this is basically the way it would be whether it was me and my cousin way back in the day when I was like a young boy, right? Probably I want to say I was probably older, a little younger, around the age. My nephew is 13 now. Yeah, he's 13 now. So I was probably around that age. So when I was around that age, me and my cousin would be in Brooklyn, and we'd either be doing some football stuff, we'd be going to parties, playing video games, or just being around someone who made me feel like I belonged. And again, this was the thing. When you grow up in the football world and the sports culture like I did, there's always that feeling, always that thing of wanting to have an older brother. And then I'm going to talk about my sister in a second, but she was, at the end of it, she was a female. She wasn't a male. All right. So when it came to like playing the game and playing sports and being able to talk about, talk girls and talk all the things that you're going to develop as a young preteen man, these are conversations that my sister wasn't necessarily qualified to have because she was born with a vagina. Right. So those are the small things. And that's why I think growing up, you kind of take to that, or you learn that. And as I'm around kids now, the more I'm around kids now, the more I see my niece and nephew as they're growing. These are things I'm learning along the way. It's almost like it's like a reflection and watching yourself in the mirror to where, in fact, speaking of, like, my mother sent a text she told me she was going to do this, actually. So, Mom, if you listen, I remember. She told me that she was going to take my nephew out to dinner, teach him how to take a woman out and all that kind of stuff. So she sent pictures with that. And I'm like, oh, snap, she really did. It was like, it's crazy to kind of see this stuff, right? So anyway, back to the article directly now. So years later, when he was dreaming up the idea for Jumper Status, I'll never forget the pride in his voice I'll never forget the pride in his voice. He looked at me, he said, "Yo, Oz." That's the way he talked. This is the way my cousin was talking now. I'm talking about my cousin when I'm saying he was dreaming up the idea of Jumper Status. He goes, "Yo, Oz, how long you known me? How long you know I like to dress? Like, you remember those times when we went to parties and I would take like 30 minutes to go and, dress, and I'll be making sure I'm good." He's like, "Yo, this is me." And this is the point I want to make on that, because when people start a business, they got to understand it's got to be them, man. It's got to be them. It can't be about yes, you got to make money. Yes, you got to make a profit. Yes, you got to go and get your bag. Ain't nobody ever telling you not to go get your bag, but it's got to be you. It's got to be something that's all up in your heart that you can feel, that you can get the burn, man. It's got to be you. So I remember it was sort of it was after I graduated college, actually. He was telling me, because he had worked at an airport for so long, and my other cousin, actually, Jamel, he was big in graphic design and create logos and stuff like that. So as they started to connect and collaborate, it was just like a natural thing. Like, let's build out an urban style clothing brand, right? So he had found his truth. All right, reading directly from the article now. He had found his truth, and without even knowing it, gave me permission to chase mine. All right. If you want proof of this man is the real deal, watch this interview from a few weeks ago. So KeyRann, he did an interview a couple of weeks ago. I'm not gonna play it. I'm not gonna necessarily play it, but I'm just gonna show you a little bit of it, because this was like a big deal. I remember when they put it in the group chat that, KeyRann was doing an interview, and I was like, yo, you know how many interviews I do? Like, this is what I do all day. But I realized it was because, hey, you don't normally see him doing it, or you don't normally see him on camera as frequently as you see me on camera and all that. So it was like a big deal. And he was promoting his brand. He was developing his brand, where everybody in the family is rocking the Jumper Status. You see him wearing the hat. You see it's a great interview, and I strongly recommend you guys go listen to it. So again, like I said, I can go for longer, but let me move on to the next phase of the article. So That was KeyRann. That's number one. So if you're looking at this directly, if you're looking at this on either YouTube, Facebook, or LinkedIn, you see it written. I have number 2, 3, and 4. Fushena, Debra, and Neil Cruikshank, the foundational 3. All right. I put all 3 of them in one section, because if I was to attempt, and I'm going to do my best as I start to get into the stories about my sister and my parents, I'm going to do my best to condense it into the Cliff Notes version of it, because all 3 of them I gave my cousin his files, because the thing is with my cousin, you can see him on social media. You can go look him up. You can go, buy his clothes, and you can see he posts regularly. He's out there, because you have to do it from you have to do it if you're going to sell your clothes. With my mother, my sister, and my father, there's nothing online. There's absolutely nothing on the internet about these 3. They have done their part in raising me and helping me understand what it is I'm all about, understand the importance of really having to prove myself, the importance of having integrity, the importance of the foundation that they've given me. But they're not on social media. They're not on the internet. You can look them up and it will be absolutely nothing, because that's just not what they do. They're not doing it as frequently as my cousin does it, or as I do it, or they're not as accessible online. And there's nothing wrong with it. I'm just explaining to you that's why I set up the article the way I set up the article. So let me read through it directly, and then we'll address it. So 2, 3, 4, Fushena, Debra, and Neil Cruikshank, the foundational 3. All right. So I grouped them together, not because their impact was small, but because if I gave each of them a full section, this would be a book, not an article. All right. So here's what I took from each of them in Cliff Note clarity. Fushena, my sister. Her first job was 14. She was 14 years old and has never stopped working since. She once told me, never tell a woman you love her unless you mean it. Simple, direct, powerful. That advice hit me hard when I met the woman I now plan to marry, because for the first time in my life, I could say it and mean it. I can say it and mean it, not because I could tell a woman I love her, not because in my mind it's like, okay, if I got to say just to get laid, hey man, do what you got to do. Not that I've done that, but I'll admit to, I've said it back to some women just to get laid, but I've never said it first. So I'll own that. I'll own the fact that, hey, I have at times said I love you back to a woman to get laid, but I'll never say it initially. It's like, if I say it back, is it, I kind of play that game. because it was a move. So I'll kind of tell the story that's gonna kind of put everything up in a kind of a bow here. So the job that she had at 14 was at my elementary school. It was at the elementary school that I attended. She was the daycare counselor at the after-school daycare counselor at the elementary school that I attended. So I was 3rd or 4th grade. I think it was either 3rd or 4th, one of the two. I can't even remember what grade it was. But long story short, you're at that age where you're starting to develop crushes and you're liking other girls, and girls are liking boys, yada yada yada. I see it every day as a teacher. And so what happened was, when she started working there, some of the girls that I went to school with met my sister, and then ultimately, because they met my sister, now they liked Aswan, quote unquote. So for the longest, I was like, shit, this works. No, this works. I didn't have to spit no game. I didn't have to do really nothing. I was like, cool, that's what's up, sis, gonna be the plug or whatever. And so, that's always kind of been the way it's been. But then there was one time where we were watching a movie, and there was, it was one of these, love stories or whatever it was. And the guy told the girl that he loved her. And then you could tell, based on the way the movie was going on, it was a teaching opportunity for her. So me and my sister were watching this movie, and then she goes, look, you better not tell no girl you love her. And this was the way her whole countenance changed, her whole mentality changed, her whole energy changed, because she said, look, if you start playing around like that, then you get real problems. In fact, I think it was, what movie I think it was? I think it was There's a Thin Line Between Love and Hate, with Martin and is it Pam Grier or Martin starred in it, and oh my God, the names, man, this was so long ago, I can't remember. But I know the movie Love, There's a thin line between love and hate, starring Martin. I think Bobby Brown was in that movie as well, where he started telling, the plot of the movie was when he told the girl he loved her, and he didn't really mean it, and he almost she damn near killed him. She brought a knife. I mean, she was going off. It was a real eye-opening thing. So that has always stuck with me. And I will, like I said, I will admit to maybe have in my past saying I love you too to a woman, because I knew if I didn't say it, then it's like, look, man, you got to get laid at some point, right? That was the mentality of the high school version of ask one, but I would never say it initially. I would never initiate that for the longest because of that small conversation that I had with my sister. So now when you look at the situation I'm in now, where I am able to say it, I'm able to, really evaluate women in the right way. And in fact, I'll never forget, because it was just a couple of weeks ago, I was with her, I was with my girl, and my sister called, and there was a lot of things going on. Because my sister was coming to South Florida for a trip to Miami, and I just happened to be with her, and it was just like, I went back to like the high school, the preteen version of me, because I remember, when you really getting serious with for the longest time, for years, whenever it got to the point where it's time for me, I was going to get serious with a girl, my sister, it almost feels like my sister's like right there somewhere in my dreams, like. So that's the power was, and I don't look at that as a negative thing. Neither does she. I don't think that it's a negative thing. I think it's something that, as I see with my niece and nephew all the time, every time I see the combination of an older sister and a younger brother, I'm always having flashbacks. I'm always seeing the power in that, because I think when you have the older sister and the younger brother, there's a structure, there's a place, there's a measure. Now, obviously, I'm a little biased when I'm saying this, but there's a thing going on with that young man that makes it so they're not going to be taken advantage. They're not going to go too far with it. All right. Now, obviously, I don't know every single combination, but I could just speak on the things that I've seen. I can speak on the things that I've lived through. Is that my sister is one of those that really made me say, yo, you got to be careful with how you just start telling women what you tell them and how you play with their feelings and shit like that, because it's important. It's important. And ultimately, when you do it the wrong way, your shit gonna get fucked up. Your bag gonna start getting messed up, because you're gonna start telling people stuff that you don't mean, and then you're not having straight what you told this one and told that one. All of that shit will lead to less money in your bank account. All of that shit gonna lead to child support payments, alimony payments. You paying for bullshit, like you paying for stuff because your stupid ass went and got someone pregnant that you didn't want to be with for the rest of your life. That this is the kind of results that I see a lot of brothers go through, like really, really going through a divorce. I mean, this shit is fucking expensive when you just because you have to get laid. So again, my sister prepped me for a lot of the problems that I see some of my peers suffering from this very day. She prepped me to not go through that, brother. Getting laid ain't that important. It's not that important. I'm telling you, it's not that important. So again, I'm working on not making this the Cliff Notes version. So that was my sister. Basically, she showed me, all right, look, you got to go out, you got to put your work in, but also make sure you treat the ladies right. Make sure again, you can have fun, you joke, but at the end of the day, don't start getting serious with people that you really don't have any intentions on getting serious with, because ultimately that shit will fuck you up. In so many words, that's what she taught me through her words and through her actions. All right. So, all right. Debra and Neil, my mother and father, where are we at on time? All right, 38 minutes. Like I told you, I can go on and on about this. So I kind of put them two together because I'll read directly from the article and we'll address it. So back to reading directly from the article now. This week's topic, Worldview, was inspired by them. Why? Because I was talking about this earlier. So because on Mother's Day, they sent a photo in our family group chat of my dad wearing the jumper status sweatshirt. That moment said everything. So let me sum it up. I'm going to sum it up for you guys. All right. Let me sum it up. What I've learned from them in just 2 lines. Number 1, this is them talking to me. All right. You're not a victim. The world will try to make you one, especially as a young Black man. But understand, in everything you do, you will be required to prove yourself. Period. This message was delivered without bitterness, without blame, just straight necessary truth. And it's why I move the way I move. Final thought. Your worldview isn't random. It's not an accident. It's shaped in the trenches around dinner tables, through car rides, group chats, and barbershop conversations. It shows up in your leadership, in your silence, in the way you speak when nobody's watching. That's what Win-Trapreneurship is all about. Knowing where you came from while building where you're going. All right, couple points here as I close you out, because I want to make sure I'm on record telling both of these stories. All right, both of these stories. When it comes to my mother, all right, when it comes to proving yourself and needing to prove yourself, and I might have mentioned this a little bit yesterday, but I want to make sure I double down on the concept, because this, like I said, this is constant. When I first started playing football, when I first started playing for the White Oak Warriors, it's my second year playing for the White Oak Warriors. We had left Rosemary Raiders and gone to the White Oak Warriors. And the first game I got in, I played maybe two or three plays, and we lost. And I was in tears the whole Saturday. I'll never forget, in tears the whole Saturday, because we lost. I barely played. I was upset. It was one of those things where easily, I must have been maybe third grade, really, really early on in my playing career. And that Monday, so it started, and then that Monday we have our practice, and my mother drops me to practice that day, and she beelines goes right to the head coach. She tells me, look, you go practice, go with the boys. And she goes to the head coach. She goes, look, let me talk to you for a second. Can I talk to you for a second? And long story short, she basically told the coach, she first asked, why is Aswan not playing, right? And the part I heard was the coach saying, oh, well, he don't know the plays yet. So then my mother rebutted with, hey, look, he comes to, I personally drop him to practice every day. He shows up. He doesn't complain. He does this, basically giving him the rundown. And she goes, so whose fault is it that he doesn't know the plays? Is it his fault? Is it something we could do? Like, I mean, it seems like something y'all are losing. This is what made me the centrist I am now. Had we actually won that game and I didn't play, then my mother doesn't get to go to the coach and tell the coach, oh, well, why isn't my son playing? No, it's not that. It's that we lost the fucking game. Okay, we lost the game. So obviously you as a coach, you're not winning and my son's not playing. Something ain't adding up. All right, so the math isn't mathing. The math isn't mathing. This is the problem with a lot of the sports parents now. It's one thing if your son isn't playing and the coach is the team is actually winning. No, the difference between what my mother did was my mother was like, look, the team's losing. We lost. We got our ass kicked and my son didn't play. So the math isn't mathing. All right. The math isn't mathing. It's something you're not doing as a coach. I swear to God, and I will never forget this for the rest of my life. The next game, I started the game. We won one of two games that we won that season. All right, one of two games. We were horrible that year. We went 2-6. We won one of two games that we won that year, and I will never forget the smile and the handshake that my mother and my coach had at the end of that game. It was a smile. It was like, oh, he was good to listen. I didn't give a shit. Listen, teachers and the people that outside the football world that tried to reach me after that, they were not matching up to that. that head coach and that the mother I had, that connection they had at that point, there was no matching it. There was no match. Nobody could reach me. I was like, look, it's football and nothing. Because that I loved. I enjoyed it. That was how you handle your business. That's why to this day I get so fired up. I get to the point where I have to walk away when I see mothers not sticking up for their young black kings, not sticking up and saying, hey, we're going to take some pride in our shit. If anyone knows me, they know that's the one thing that drives me fucking crazy is when I see young black boys being persecuted when we're busting our ass. And they got, they're in situations where they can't even have their own mother stand up for that. That's bullshit. That's just bullshit. Okay. I'm getting long-winded on that one. I told you I can go for hours on that. Let me get to my father. Final this story. I'll kind of attempt to close you out with the story about my father, because again, there's so much there, and what inspired today's show was the fact that he went, and this isn't his nephew directly. He's married into it, and my cousin's my mother's nephew. So it's not, it's not his sister's son, right? So he just shows that just clearly shows how much he's willing to support on that end and how much, support he's willing to give when he actually understands something. That's number one. Next thing that I'll close you out with this, because that gives you just kind of a example, a shining example, a brief example of what it's all about. But when it came to just me moving here, all right, now I'll tell you, my mother tells me all the time, I'm just like them in it that, look, when you start clashing, you start clashing. So me and my father, we done gone at it. We done gone at it to where there were points where it's like, you want to go at it, we can really go at it. So we went through a period there where there weren't pleasant conversations, where we were going at it pretty hard. It's like two of the same people just at it for like just really going strong-headed individuals going at it, right? That's kind of me putting it mildly. But anyway, I was still living in Maryland. I was 26 or something like that, 26 or 27. And he had told me, all right, look, it's time for you to start paying rent every month or whatever. So I did it. I just paid it or whatever to, just do what you have to do. If you're staying there, pay rent or whatever. So anyway, when I first moved to Florida, I didn't, you regular listeners know, didn't know where I was going to stay, didn't have a job offer, didn't have any, just decided I was going to drive out in the middle of the night and start building my life out in Florida. What he did is the rent that I was paying monthly for that last, 3 or 4 months that I was in Maryland. I can't remember how many months that I was paying. But he saved it. He saved it and he sent it to me so I could use it when I was first looking for a place to stay out here in Florida. So that's, again, it doesn't matter how crazy I'm not. And I get accused of the same thing now when I'm dealing with the kids, or how like psychotic we may seem. At the end of the day, our heart is always in the right place. It's always about, hey, how do we help build this one? How do we help create this? How do we help do this? And our tactics are a little bit out of, maybe a little extreme. I'll say it like that, a little extreme in terms of our delivery, but at the same time, the heart is always in the right place. And that's what I inspire you guys to do. I'm not here telling you that the people that were in my life that helped shape my worldview, they're not perfect. I will tell you that. They will tell you that. If that was to bring them on, they will all tell you the same thing. They're not perfect by any means. But what I will implore you and I will encourage you all to do today is make sure that your heart is always in the right place, because when your heart's always in the right place and you're always looking to build and you're always looking to be productive, eventually folks are going to understand. Eventually you will land on wherever it is God is taking you. And I will close you out with this. Pastor Aswan, Preacher Aswan, going to come out on this one. All right. God's dream and God's goal and God's focus and God's plan for your life is bigger than whatever it is you have planned. All right. Whatever goal, whatever thing it is you have planned, God has a bigger thing in store for you. So pay attention to it, focus on it, lock into it, and make sure no matter what, your heart is in the right place with whatever you do, especially if you're talking about how you're raising young people and how you're going to build for the future. All right. All that being said, man, I knew I was going to go. I attempted to keep it under 45 minutes, but I knew I was going to go over whenever I start getting on the subject and talking about some of the stories that I had growing up, because to this day, there's so many blessings that I couldn't be more thankful for when it comes to these things. And I feel an obligation to continuously share these things publicly as often as I possibly can share them. So all that being said, again, business owners, if you want a staff, again, if you want someone that's going to come in and teach your staff how to create this atmosphere that I'm referring to, just simply go to makeyourmove.com. That's makeyaMove.com. Inquire about the employee development workshops and how you can start to incorporate that system. Everyone out there, continue to move swiftly. We will talk more soon.